Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
Hey everybody, welcome back and thank you so much for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast. Mariano Alvarez here with Brent Labrada and another very special guest who we'll be announcing in a second. But first, we do want to let you guys know that you can find us on all major social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, as well as all major podcast platforms by searching the Dog Trainers Podcast. With that, I want to give a quick shout out to some people that have been showing us love. We're getting a lot of downloads from Centennial, Colorado, Los Angeles, California, Boston, Massachusetts, and Stockholm in Sweden. That's kind of cool. And yeah, we thank you guys so much for your support. We thank you so much for all the hard work and you give us in questions, and we have one to bring up in just a bit here. And we really, really just want to thank you guys so much for keeping us motivated to keep doing these interviews and keep talking with other trainers and progress this thing forward. So with that, over to you, Brent.
Hey guys, how's it going? This is episode 45. Welcome, guys. I hope you guys had a good time listening to our episode with Jonas Black, episode 44. We've been getting a lot of comments and DMs from you guys, but that was last week's news. We love Jonas. He's the man. Let's talk about today's special guest. He is the owner of packmasters.com. He is also, you can follow him at Larry Krohn. I just gave away who it is. And he's also the author of Everything You Need to Know About E-Collar Training. We'd like to welcome our very special guest, Larry Krohn. How you doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's our pleasure, man. It's our pleasure. And as you guys know, we like to bring on, we're very grateful to all the special guests that agree to be on this podcast because, they're able to share with us their experience, their knowledge, their little tidbits of growth that will help inspire us to become a better industry. And so we really, really appreciate you being on, Larry. Going into this podcast, I've personally followed you for many, many years. Obviously being in the business and working with dogs every single day, like it is sometimes a gift to be able to like take a day and study someone else. Cause sometimes you're just in the grind. Sure. You're working with clients, you're teaching classes, whatever it is. And then anytime I have a break, it's funny, on my vacations, that's when I study, on my breaks, that's when I study. And so especially building a business, it just works out that way. And so over the last couple of years, your videos, your books, your content has always been something that I've pulled lots of value from. And yeah, it's the truth. It's the truth. And so, I guess I don't necessarily know where to start, but I guess let's go ahead and start from the beginning if we can. I guess tell people who, a lot of people who know who you are, who are going to be listening to this. But let's go ahead and tell people who you are, what you do, and what your story a little bit. Let's tell them your story, about how you got into dog training.
It's pretty nothing exciting, not very sexy. It's like a lot of people, when me and my wife first got married and we got our first dog, I was working down on the Mexican border. I just started my career as a federal agent. We got a puppy literally on the Mexican border. This border collie jumped my buddy's fence and bred his chocolate lab, and we had a lab border collie mix. We had no kids. I knew nothing, and we completely destroyed that dog. We really put that dog through hell mentally because we treated him like our child. We didn't know what we were doing, and he was everything to us. Really intelligent dog. Dog lived for a Frisbee, and we enjoyed it. But some of the stories, I could write a book on just some of the comical stories with what that dog did to us. It was just bad. So I knew right away, he was probably 5 months old, and I hired a trainer. And when I get involved in something, I become kind of consumed, obsessed, and insane about learning as much as I can. And I'm so grateful that the first trainer I worked with was really focused on behavior, and he had the best behaved dog I had ever seen. And so from that moment, that's all I cared about. That's what I wanted. I didn't care about obedience and bite work and, fancy healing
stuff.
I just wanted a really well-behaved dog. So to make a long story short, it wasn't long after that we got another dog. We added a Rottweiler to our family, and that's what I really just focused on. So for many years, I think what makes me a little better with some of the tools, especially the e-collars. I trained for a really long time with just a leash and a flat collar.
Yeah.
That was it. There was nothing else. I didn't use food up until literally not that long ago. You know, it was just all building that relationship and building the behavior. And you know, we had really good dogs. We really did. It was funny because we got that first dog and we lived in an apartment. We weren't allowed to have dogs. And I went ahead and got the puppy anyway. And we were in Arizona, so there was a lot of snowbirds, they call them, old people that would come down from the north and spend the winter down by us, right?
Right.
And so every day I'd have to take that little puppy and visit all the old people. They loved him, and he loved meeting all the people. And he'd go and just meet, and they were so happy. And then one day I get a knock on our door, and I open it, and it's the superintendent of the apartments. And he goes, "Hey, heard you got a puppy." I was like, "I do." He's like, "Can I see him?" I was like, "Sure." And the puppy comes out and he's rolling around on the floor, like probably spent half hour playing with the puppy. He's like, "All right, thanks for letting me play with the puppy."
Yeah.
we never had an issue, you know, but we did create, the dog struggled with separation anxiety so bad just because of the things we did in the beginning. It really affected him.
How old was the puppy before you seeked out help professionally?
5 months old.
Okay.
5 months. Okay.
Yeah, because he was already struggling. Listen, I remember coming home from work one day and we had him fenced in the kitchen, right? Didn't use a crate because he would scream. That's what I thought you should do, right? And, you know, like the protein meal replacements like Metrics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I remember I had a case of vanilla Perfect RX on the floor in my bedroom. And I walked into my house and the kitchen was across the room and I see the gate knocked over and I see white footprints everywhere.
Like it snowed inside your house.
All over my house. And now I'm pissed. I am furious. My apartment was destroyed. And then all of a sudden I look over and he comes running out and he was black. He was jet black. All I could see is his eyes. He was covered with white powder.
With white powder.
That was it.
He's
and
just
I just, you know, I had to laugh, and I knew from that day on we got to do something here. You know, so he's the dog that really started it all for us. He really did.
Okay. Were you guys down? So you said you were working at the border. Were you down like in Yuma?
No, I was in Douglas, Arizona.
Oh, okay. I'm in. Are you still in Arizona?
No, I'm in Kentucky now. I came to Kentucky in 1999, and I just retired this week. Actually, I'm done.
Oh, congratulations!
Thanks.
What are you gonna do with all your time?
Train a puppy.
Man. Yeah, I got a puppy. I got a puppy.
Very cool.
Yeah, so it was a blessing that, you know, I wasn't turned on to someone using e-collars and stuff like that, especially back then. You know, in the mid 90s, because things were used very differently. And if I would have first met someone that trained with those tools, I think I'd be a much different trainer today.
For sure.
Yeah.
I had a question for you that it comes up a lot, right? And so I'll tell you my own personal perspective growing up in the dog training industry, because you know, there's kind of these different worlds, right? And we're not talking about methods necessarily, but there is this idea of behavior, and then there's idea of obedience, right? And in some situations, there's kind of an overlap, like where behavior affects obedience affects behavior, vice versa.
Sure.
Would you mind giving the audience kind of your definition of what do you mean by behavior training, and then what is your definition of obedience training?
If I had to make it really short and really simple, I would say behavior is silent and obedience is verbal. Yeah. You know, obedience is do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. And behavior is just being proper, you know, living
coexisting,
in the moment, living together and doing the right thing properly. If I had to put in a real, and I train them, I do it separately. I separate those two things very much so, you know, I really do. But you know, the emphasis for me is on the behavior always.
Right. And it's kind of like how our behaviors affect the dog's behavior in general, right? Because it's kind of the dog's only going to learn to do what we allow them to learn to do. And that has, right. So that's a great definition. Cool. And I think that I hear you talk a lot about in some of your videos, how, you know, obedience is great, behavior is in your opinion the primary, right? And so we saw a couple people in the last 20, 30 years come up with different, approaches to training. And there's this wide menu of places to pick from, right? Where do we start, right? Are we starting with marker training? Are we starting with obedience? Are we starting with protection? Are we starting with specialty dogs and tricks? Are we starting with behavior? Are we starting? So there's so many areas, and especially in what's considered to be the balanced dog training world, we see that it's kind of all like meshed together.
That is a tough question, because I do notice it's kind of hard to start obedience without also starting behavior. And it's kind of, it's so much easier to start behavior. I just had a couple of, so I'm currently in Phoenix, just to give you like an idea.
Oh, I love Phoenix.
I love Phoenix too. I'm so glad that I moved here. I've only been here for, actually, once we get into April, it'll be my second year here, and I'm loving it.
Hey, you ever been to Barrio Cafe?
I think I've heard of it. Where, remind me where.
Oh Lord, listen, you gotta, you gotta go.
I'm gonna tell them Larry sent me. I'll go.
Yeah, I was in Phoenix last month, and I met a buddy of mine, a good friend that lives in Phoenix, and the best guacamole on the face of the earth. The queso fundido is over the top insane. The menudo, some of the best I ever had. You gotta go.
What's the place called again? What's the place called?
Barrio Cafe.
Barrio Cafe. Okay, I'm gonna try that. And
I want to say it was on 16th Street. It wasn't far from the airport.
I think I passed it because I'm not too far from the airport either. Next time you're in town, let me know. I'm gonna take you to Avanti. It's the best Italian I've ever had.
Oh, nice.
Super, super good.
Yeah. But you're welcome, Barrio Cafe. This episode is brought to you by
I know.
Cafe.
But to get back on track, so I definitely want to talk a little bit more about, I'm just going to plant this in your head now just because it popped into mind. So as you talk about the importance of learning the types of training that you learned in the sequence that you did, because if you had started with tools back in the day where e-collar training was something totally different, it may have totally shifted you around as a trainer. So I'd love to touch a little more about, is that something that you notice with today's like younger trainers? Because there's so much with YouTube and so many people go like straight to e-collar and, and all that good stuff. Do you think that there's something to do with that? Like, should people be learning in a certain sequence, food or behavior or whatever, and then?
That is an outstanding question. And I think one of the biggest problems we have today is if you're a young trainer and you're just coming up, your future pretty much depends on who you start following, right?
Mm.
You start following the wrong people from the start, you're going to be hurting and you don't know it. You think you're doing great and you feel real good about yourself and you become very cocky and very arrogant because this is what this person that's so important in your life does. And they're so popular and they have all these followers. So it has to be the right thing to do. And it's one of the biggest issues we have today. The problem is some of the people out there that need to be the teachers, the people that should be looked up to, aren't necessarily big
attention
people on social media.
Yeah,
right. Some of them aren't even on social media, and that's a problem. That's why for me, I try to promote the people that I still study from, that I still follow, that I learn from, and the majority of that comes from the working dog world.
Right.
And I think one of the biggest issues we have in the pet dog industry is that they ignore the working dog side of the world. And that's a tremendous, tremendous mistake, because the second that light bulb went in my head and that ignition was lit, that fire was lit when I first encountered the working dog people, it changed the way I train forever. And it made me a much better dog trainer.
I couldn't agree with you more. And the next time you're in town, check out Sean Thomas. He runs the kennel, The Good Dog, out in Gilbert, and he and his dogs, his Schutzen dogs, they do very well.
Is it Good Dog or Top Dogs?
It's Top Dog. I'm so sorry, Top Dog.
Top Dogs. I was like, Good Dog is Sean.
You're right. Top Dog in Gilbert. Okay, so then, you know what? Let's take this opportunity now then, because I know exactly what you're saying. A lot of the more like academically, what's the word? A lot of the more accomplished actual dog trainers aren't as like tech savvy as a lot of the more like modern dog trainers. So tell us a little bit about some of your mentors, if you could.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call them mentors. I
Okay.
definitely have influences.
Okay.
You
Okay.
know, I think the mentor thing. If you're fortunate enough to spend, a really large amount of time with someone, uh, months at a time, year at a time, couple years at a time, that's a big thing. But I don't think the dog training world operates much like that anymore.
Got
Things
it.
are very different, and it's because of the access to people through social media.
Right.
Doesn't have to be, right? So that first dog trainer that I worked with, that's literally the last pet dog trainer that I ever worked with. Like
Okay.
that was it. I'm the kind of person that doesn't just take something and then jump onto the next thing. I focused on getting great what I learned from him as much as I could, right? And coming into that, I despised e-collars because as a little kid, I was a hunter. I was a big bird hunter.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, you're talking 40 years ago, 40 something years ago,
Right.
guys had bird dogs off leash with e-collars on, and it was brutal.
Right.
You'd
Right.
hear dogs screaming all through the woods in New
Right.
Jersey on state land running. And I never saw a dog cooperate the way they did. I saw a lot of dogs screaming.
Mhm.
So I despised the use of e-collars for a really long time, you know? And so I guess I was training probably about 12 to 15 years, just leash and flat collar, no food, no nothing. And I did real well behavioral wise. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
teach dogs much when it came to obedience, just the basic things. And in, I guess, around 2010, 2009, 2010, somewhere around there was the first time I ever met Bart Ballone. Bart Ballone he came back to the States for the first time and did a seminar in Virginia. And it completely changed the way I looked at dog training. I started using food because I'm not an idiot. To me, using food was stupid bullshit, like PetSmart stuff.
Right.
But when I saw people like Bart and Michael Ellis using food, they said, well, if these guys that are on top of the game are using food, I have to be missing something.
Right.
And the second I added that to my training, again, made a huge difference. It made everything better, made everything easier.
Yep.
It really did.
Right.
And from that one time, I became obsessed with taking everything I learned from that one time, and I kept going back every time I had the opportunity to be at a Bart seminar or something. I would learn something new, and I would just implement it into my training, even though it was mostly pet dogs. But the working dog stuff that I learned provided tons of benefits for me with pet dogs, especially the problem dogs.
Right. Right.
And then when I got Luca, that was in 2012, 2011, 2012. I was able to start really focusing on the working dog stuff on my side.
Is that the
trying to
Roddy?
get better at
Luca's
it?
the Roddy?
No, Luca's the Malinois.
Oh,
Bruno
okay.
was my Rottweiler right before Luca.
Got it.
Bruno was best trained dog I ever had, and that dog was trained on a leash and a walk. That was it.
Yep.
There was never any food, no tools, no nothing. Bruno was 4 or 5 years old the first time I ever put an e-collar on him. And that's, I was, just getting introduced to using it in a different way and starting to be open-minded to it, you know. But that working dog stuff is what changed everything for me. It really did.
I couldn't agree with you more. Can I ask you a bit of a technical question? Because for me, it was a similar thing. So my background is similar-ish to yours, including the fact that I actually started with dogs in the Air Force. And that's obviously a whole new world, and pet dog training with clients. And, that being said, I met Brent in LA. We worked a lot of leash pressure stuff at the time using food rewards. However, when I got more into working dog, sport dog stuff, I really learned the true benefit of using food as lures and more in a direct motivational sense, and not just as like, oh, here you go, you're done with the sit down, heel, whatever. So I guess my question to you then is I totally agree with you that more dog trainers could really benefit from learning a lot of sport dog stuff. Is there a certain thing or a couple things that really point out to you? Like, if you're listening to this, look into the sport dog world and pay attention to X.
Y or Z?
That's a tough question. I think it's the basic communication between the animal.
Okay.
So even people in the pet dog world that use food and use toys, when you watch a lot of it, they don't understand how the dog learns. And what I mean by that is they tend to make it a very fuzzy picture for the dog. So holding a piece of food up and asking the dog to sit and then giving them a piece of food, that is pet smart stuff. That is bribery. That's not training, you know, but having the dog perform and activate you to produce the reward is something that a lot of people struggle with.
Right.
You know, I mean, and it's simple things like that and the timing with everything. And a big part of the thing is so many people assume the dog knows a lot more than they do.
1,000. Right.
Yeah.
And they jump into punishment so fast.
Absolutely.
And so one of the things that I'm most told when I do a seminar, like take this seminar I just did in Amarillo a few weeks ago, like people were really shocked on how much leeway I gave dogs without using any kind of punishment. And what I had to explain to them was I'd give them little tests. I said, okay, so you think we should punish the dog for that? They said, yeah, well, the dog's not complying. I said, okay, I want you to do something. And I would have them, you know, give the command without any movement from their body or do little things.
Right.
You know, or even if it was a marker, a reward marker or a release command.
Right.
And the dog, every single time, 100%, the dogs would do nothing. They'd be looking because they didn't really know the words, the commands, the behaviors. And it's very eye-opening for people when they see that.
Yeah.
And so what happens is when you're a dog trainer and you have, you know, say 5 to 10 years in, including myself, you're learning so much because everything's new and you think you're hot shit. You think you know everything. I know I did. I really thought I knew everything. I was like, there's nothing else to learn.
How many years are you in now, Larry?
25.
No big deal. Just 20.
Yeah. and you do. You think you know everything. And then you get with the right person and you're like, holy shit.
You're like, I don't know shit. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I don't know that much. And then 15 to 20 years in, you're like, wow, I know nothing.
Right.
I know maybe 5% of what there is to know in dog training. There's a hell of a lot more that I don't know than I do know.
So
and that's why I'm obsessed constantly with learning, obsessed with it.
Can I torture my friend for a second, Larry?
Sure.
Sorry, Brent. So pretty much what he just said was, so to get back to the jujitsu thing, which I swear I never talk about ever.
I hate when you talk about jujitsu. Anyway, go ahead.
But the thing is, it's so applicable, and I wanted to bring this up anyway, just because I like to. I'm just kidding. So I wanted to bring this up anyway, Larry, because in all seriousness, what you just said, I'll break it down like this for the listeners, and then I have a question for you. Okay, so this is the best way that I've ever been described jujitsu belts from a 5th degree black belt, somebody who like you with dog training has been in the sport just so long, and what I was told is white belts, they're new to the game. Your job as a white belt, like your job as a new dog trainer, is to find a game plan that works for you, get good at that one thing, and do your best to stick with it, because obviously the dog,
the limits.
Right. Well, the dog and the owners, and like everybody's got their own kind of thing to throw you off. Like naturally, it's not their objective, but you know, you've got to learn how to roll with your punches a little bit. Blue belts are just, you know, enough now that you can venture out a little bit. You can be a little less robotic, because if you're a little more relaxed with your, you know, just being human and having fun, you know how to get back on the rails and keep running on with your lesson, or, you know, or so on. Purple belts are just really good blue belts. Brown belts are baby black belts. And once you hit black belt, you're a white belt again. You're so well versed now that you're starting all over of just exploring. This is totally new territory. Only you're seeing things from new eyes. And so my question to you is, do you think that there's something to the like, do you agree or disagree, I guess is my question.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, and my question is, have you noticed in dog training, people can like take in information, but it doesn't quite hit them until way later when they're ready to absorb the information?
Yeah. Yes, I've talked about this with a few old timers quite a bit. For example, I had a conversation a while ago with someone that I really look up to and respect. And I said, I don't understand it. I've been to your seminars now 5 or 6 times, a lot of the same people there all the time, and they never change. They think it's the
They're
greatest
still figuring
thing.
it out.
Yeah, they think it's the greatest. They leave there going, this was unbelievable. This was the best thing I ever did. But then you see them 6 months later, a year later, and they're not doing anything that they learned. They haven't changed anything, you know. And he said to me, he said, you just got it, you know. And so I always really tried. I think I'm only good at one thing in dog training, and that's learning. I'm pretty good at learning, you know. I'm pretty
and applying it and applying it.
Yes, yeah. I'm pretty good at taking things from people better than me and really analyzing it and making it my own. Because the second you try to copy or emulate someone, you're screwed. You can't do it.
Right. Not effectively, anyway. Yeah.
You have to take those learning principles and the ideas and fit it into your own personality and quirks and behaviors. We all have that. You know what I mean? And the problem is today, to your exact question, I think one of the biggest mistakes is so many people have addiction to seminars. They go from seminar to seminar to seminar.
Seminaritis. That's what Michael Ellis called it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's admirable that they want to learn and they keep putting themselves out there, but they haven't been able to focus on anything they learned in the seminar 12 seminars ago.
Right.
You know, and so they just become seminar groupies and junkies.
It's like going to concerts. Yeah.
Yeah. I know some of them that have spent thousands and they're no better today than they were 5 years ago. Where if you could spend 1 weekend or 3 days or a week with one individual that has a lot more skill and knowledge than you, soak that in, spend the next year or two focusing on that. It's going to get you much further.
Yeah.
Right.
It's going to get you much further. It really is.
Yeah. There was a book that I read called The Talent Code, and
it's my favorite.
I love that book, and they talk about collecting the dots and then connecting the dots, right? And so some people just go out to seminars and on YouTube, and they're just collecting dots, but they never connect them. And I think, I think that's one of the goals of modern dog training is like, all right, how do we take the dots from this field? How can we access this matrix of knowledge that has been shown to us by, the people before us and taught to us? And how can we do right by this dog? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that book. I'm so glad you like that book.
Well, Michael and Bart Ballone turned the dog training world onto that book. And
it's so good.
That is I get so bored when I get excited about a new book and then I get 15, 20 minutes and I get bored. That was the first book
that you keep.
Read. I couldn't put it down. I
read that whole book on the way to Utah and on the way back from Utah. I was working for the animal rescue, and I finished the whole book. It's only like 3 or 4 hours to Utah and 3 or 4 hours back. Binged the whole thing on the plane.
And you know what it did for me? It answered so many questions for me that I knew something worked that I've done for years, but I could never explain or understand why.
Yeah. Or why it's not clicking with the client, or why it's not clicking with my student or something. I love
that book really put that stuff into perspective. It's a must read for everyone in the dog training world. Yeah.
To give you guys a little bit of a preface of this book, this episode is brought to you by the Talent Code. Anyways, it's a book that talks about the development of skill and how some people think people are born with talent, but in essence, talent is something that you create, right? So some people could look at Kobe Bryant, for example, rest in peace, and be like, oh, he was born that way. No, that motherfucker worked his ass off every day to be the best that he could be. And this book follows different sports in different parts of the world, and they pretty much analyze the different things that these talent hubs are doing throughout the world to create the best of the best players, the best of the best musicians, the best of the best singers. And it puts it all in a book for you guys. It's a really, really awesome book.
Yeah. One of the biggest things from that book that I don't know if I changed, but I focused on more, especially when I do seminars and stuff, dog trainers have a tendency when they ask the dog to perform a task and the dog hesitates or fails, they try to push them through it. Just stopping and starting over and starting from the beginning. The learning goes through the roof just by doing that. Changes everything. Changes everything.
I have to admit to you that's a lesson. That right there was a lesson that I learned relatively recently. I've been training dogs now for close to like 10 years. And I figured that out maybe a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And it was actually Tyler Muto who really kind of put me onto that. Brent has been following Tyler Muto for a long time, and we had him on the podcast. And so ready for it, of course, I was like doing some research, and I saw a video he did on teaching the place command on e-collar, and
we'll get to that later.
Yeah, we'll get to. But one of the I will never ever forget this moment. So Tyler is explaining how this dog isn't new, but it's new to not new to place, new to e-collar pressure. So he's going through the whole process of I'm going to walk the dog over to the bed, say place, do the whole thing. And then he walks the dog over. He stops himself physically. So the dog gets like, oh, we're stopping, and sits down on the bed. And then Tyler walks like a couple steps away to get closer to the camera to explain what's going on. And while he does this, the dog does one of these, like, not sure, I think I can get off now, really slow, like puts the paw on the ground. Tyler doesn't really say anything. He doesn't correct with the e-collar. He just takes the step back to the dog, and the dog goes.
Right.
And then he explains, he releases rewards, resets, and then he explains as to why sometimes, well, especially when the dog doesn't quite know, but even if the dog knew better, sometimes you have to just let that go for the sake of the momentum of the training overall. You can't fight every single little battle. And after that mistake, the dog was solid for the rest of that like 17-minute video. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't have a dog that's scared of making mistakes.
Correct. Yeah. Right.
And
right.
That was a big thing with that. My rant on the place command, people start hammering these dogs the second they get. I encourage the mistakes. I love the mistakes. I want the dog to make the mistakes, because showing the dog where the mistake is without hammering them physically and showing the dog what to do, the dog's going to learn it much better and much faster. And it's the same thing with the owners. Right. I allow the owners, I need the owners to make mistakes. Absolutely. And that's why I'm very hands-on with them. Right. Because once they make those mistakes, and even let's say I'm doing a private lesson the first week, first time I meet with them, I keep it so simple that I know they're going to screw it up. Yeah. Right. But in the way they're going to screw it up, they're not going to mess the dog up. And I tell them this. And I said, when I come back the second week, we'll fix all your mistakes. And that's what we do. Yep. And then they show me what they're doing. I say, okay, let's change this up. And it clicks for them then. It clicks when you can show them and give them a different way to do it. Yeah. And the learning just goes so much faster because they get it like that, you know?
Do you find that the biggest, like in my experience, when I'm doing a go home, after board and train or even with clients and privates, people are just doing too much, and you're literally trying to tell them, do less, do less, stop relying on your tool, stop relying on the tone of your voice, do this, or push into them, or walk backwards, or do the, you know what I mean? And it's so funny because I always teach it. I'm like, I'm trying to teach you guys how to communicate without the reliance of this tool. If you ever want this dog to be off leash trained, well, we need to stop tapping. We need to stop pulling up on the leash. We need to stop doing all this stuff. And like, the only way we're going to get to complete verbal, if you guys just use these as backups. These are all your backups. And
if you want great off leash control, you have to do a lot more on leash control.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what's going to get you there. You know, it's not going to come through punishment. It's not going to happen. Yeah. You know, it just isn't. But again, that goes back to such an enormous segment of the dog training population that's fairly new. Right. And they follow popular dog trainers that see, you don't like it, just punish it. You don't like it, just punish it. It's not going to work. Sure. You're not going to get to what you think you want to get. And the reason I put that video out that day is what I explained to people. Listen, guys, I don't pull this out of my ass laying in bed in the morning because I feel like posting something. I get sent videos every single day, every day. And it's disgusting. And I don't like seeing them. I don't ask for them. I don't want them. But if you see what some of these trainers do to these dogs, people that people trust, it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And then when you talk to the former employees of some of these popular dog trainers, if they ever came forward and wanted to speak publicly, they'd be done. They'd be finished, because there's brutality that goes on in a lot of these board and trains that if I just talked about it, people would never believe it. They just wouldn't. Listen, some lady made a video the other day. I won't say her name, but she was referencing my video. She shouldn't do that. She shouldn't do that because of some of the videos I've had sent to me of dogs. One right now in particular that's in a rescue that's completely destroyed because of what she did. Because day one, the e-collar goes on, the prong collar goes on, and it's hammer, hammer, hammer. And they think they're fucking doing something. They really think they're training a dog. and it just sickens me. It pisses me off to no end because they shouldn't even have their hands on a dog. And they show this shit proudly, but do you know why they do? It's not their fault. They were taught that way by people they trust.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's how they were taught, they were like, look, I'm getting just as good as the people who taught me. And they don't have the ability to know that the people taught them are fucking douchebags. They don't get it. They don't understand it. That's a problem because it's a vicious cycle and it never stops.
Yeah.
Sorry for the rant.
No. I mean, so many times we hear trainers that, we talk about, like even people who are big influencers online, who they talk about, when I started out, I worked for a kennel, in wherever city they are, the Carolinas, the South, Texas, doesn't matter. And then they go, but I didn't like it there because they were too tough on dogs. So I left. That's also part of an origin story we hear all the time. And so they find something that feels better. They find something that makes more sense, because anybody with common sense can eventually realize they keep hitting a brick wall. And I remember when I started in Keeler Method a long time ago, when I was 18, as a young adolescent, hormonal, cocky dude, of course, dominance and power and this and all that stuff. And it made me feel strong. Even though as a child, I didn't feel that strong. Right. And I see that happen a lot too. It's like sometimes, that was feeding the ego, but there was no substance behind it. And eventually I would hit these brick walls. I would be like, how come when I demo a dog, his tail's down? Mm-hmm. How come when I demo a dog, his head's low? How come he's listening and only when the owner comes out post demo, the dog is wiggling, right? And so, you start kind of coming to terms of like, all right, this dog is associating, maybe perhaps learned helplessness with me, right? Perhaps this dog is associating, is scared to fuck up in front of me, right?
Walking on eggshells.
Yeah, and if you're sensitive or read a dog, over time, I used to be like, that's respect. That's not respect. That's not respect, because I've been able, and it was actually Michael Ellis's videos, the power training dogs with food, that I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do another demo where the dog's tail is down, not necessarily between his legs, just down, and then I did the whole pendulum swing. I did all food work. I just freaking ingested and binged Learberg night and day. And it changes. It just changes you. It changes you. The evolution
Michael's stuff is invaluable in the pet dog world.
Right.
And what's so valuable about it is it's very easy to learn and follow. Not saying you're going to be Michael Ellis, but the way he trains is very learnable for most dog trainers.
Yes.
And I don't think he gets enough credit for how much he's influenced the pet dog training industry. I really don't.
That's I agree with you. And it's funny that that he's not more, it's not like Learberg and Michael Ellis's personal channels aren't big, but they're just, you're amazed that they're not like 40 million followers,
Yeah.
So I like to tell people, like, oh, hey, yeah, we had Michael Ellis on the podcast, and somebody's like, who? And I'm amazed. And I'm like, okay, if you don't know, he's your favorite dog trainer's favorite dog trainer.
Yeah.
Right. That's great.
I wanted to take a little step backwards, since we're bringing up Michael and we're bringing up the importance of learning your lessons in the correct order. Because I agree with you guys. Michael Ellis, I personally think he's the best dog training teacher I've ever seen. I watched the Learberg stuff too. Great teacher. And I think that's why everything's so learnable. He breaks down the little nitpicky details that you wouldn't think to explain to someone. As a trainer, it's important to get these right when you're working a dog. But you don't think to explain to the owner, make sure your hand is perfectly head level, because if it's even this much higher. And he does. And, with that, when we had him on, he was telling us about his own upbringing in the dog world, and how he too was too firm in the beginning. And he told us something that we thought was very profound. And that was, if he could go back and resurrect some of the dogs that he learned how to train with, he would do that and apologize to them.
Yeah. Well, listen, he's not just a great trainer and a phenomenal teacher, but he's a real good guy, humble guy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And at that level, it's really hard to find. It
just
really
class.
is.
He's just class. Yeah.
Good. I went out to his place in 2010, probably 11, 12 years ago,
Yep.
just to try to be a better teacher. I
Me
wanted to see
and
how he
Mariano,
taught.
yeah, me and Mariano were going to go out right before COVID.
Right before COVID, really, yeah.
COVID
it was already
happened.
like happening, but it took a big downturn, and so
Yeah,
that kind of.
we were like, we're going to come see you, in a week or two. He goes, great, and then all of a sudden it was like locked down.
Sucked.
Every city got locked down.
Yeah.
So we hope to redeem that invitation.
You know what the best part about going out to see Michael is?
What's that?
That he's in the Napa Valley.
Phenomenal Asian food. Phenomenal.
Yeah. I love that.
Fantastic. Good stuff.
Not the dog training, just the food, for sure.
The food.
I mean, Michael's cool too, but the food, man.
Yeah,
that's the line of reason.
So real quick, I wanted to go back on that. So like the evolution of like how we grow. Now, maybe obviously there is no right answer, right? I started prior to even Keeler method. I was a young kid watching every episode of Cesar Millan, right? And I was understanding behavior, and I was understanding. I also worked with thoroughbreds, and I worked on ranches, and so I definitely realized how my body language and interaction with animals affected their behavior with me at a really, really young age, which not everyone gets that experience. But I spent many years learning obedience, and then learning how obedience affects behavior, and then how obedience affects behavior. And then this idea of state of mind came in, which again is a callback to what I learned when I was younger, right? State of mind, how important emotion and the dog psychology aspect of everything is. And then 10 years later, I'm reintroduced to where I started.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So it's like I started learning, like I know all this obedience, I know all of this, I understood behavior, but I was more focused on the technical stuff of all that stuff. And it's so funny, 13 years later, the last 3 years have just been me putting it all together to make sense for individual clients. And so I teach behavior courses, and I also teach, if you want to learn advanced obedience, I'll teach you the advanced obedience stuff too,
Sure.
But I guess, sorry.
Do you know what you just explained to me?
What?
I need you to say it for one time for the people in the back, please.
Just jujitsu.
Jujitsu.
Yes. I'm gonna get you one day. Yeah. I want to bring you to.
Well, as I became a black belt, right?
There you go.
I'm now a new white belt, right?
There you go.
I fucking hate you. You get one. You get one. Fine. You're like, I love you. All right. But anyways, yeah. So that's kind of been my journey, right? Like before, I wasn't a really huge internet buff until probably like 2010, right? Because everything else was, videos I downloaded, and I watched the whole series from this person, that person, this person, this person. Right. I don't know. Is that a common journey? That's a common process, right? I have no clue. That's what I kind of want to talk about. How can a young dog trainer know that they're on the path?
Oof. That's tough. That's
maybe there's no answer. There probably is no answer.
I think where most people struggle when it comes to dog training, and I've talked about this recently too, and I know it wasn't very popular with a lot of people. It almost doesn't matter how good of a dog trainer, what you can do with the dog. If when you send that dog back home, people don't get the same results long term.
Yeah. Right.
And that's something that I've worked really hard on for years. Okay. Really hard. I know great dog trainers. Some I like, some I don't like, some we get along, some we don't. But they're good dog trainers that do a great job, and they'll show these videos and brag about it and show what the dog was like before and show it now, doing great. And I mean, it is good stuff. It's no bullshit.
Right.
But I also know a lot of those trainers where those dogs have gone back and done really bad, where the results were either very short-lived, there were no results. Some of the dogs were sent back to shelters. Some of the dogs were put down. And it's not because those guys are scammers or bad trainers. They're great trainers.
Right.
But they're very dismissive on the little things,
the variables
that do matter to an owner, that may not matter to a professional dog trainer.
Right.
And I see it every single day, to where if they would get rid of the arrogance and the cockiness and not ignore the little things that owners need to change inside the home, that phenomenal work that they do with the dog would last a much longer time. And to give you an example, one of the cases that I'm asked a lot about 7 years ago, 2 pit bull mixes, Duke and Herc, killing each other inside the home.
Right.
Okay.
I'm dealing with that right now. Yeah.
Toughest cases you could deal with as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Agreed.
Those dogs have lived together ever since. No issues. They'll send me updates. I post videos of them playing, laying on the same bed. I talked to them last week, and after 6 years, there were 2 minor incidents. Okay. And so I have to get out there and we have to figure out why. What's changed? Because the people haven't changed. These people have done as good a job. I mean, they turned something around that most people would have had to get rid of one of the dogs. So after all these years, there's been a couple of 2 minor incidents, and they don't want it to escalate.
Right.
The only thing I could think of is they're both a lot older now. The dogs are old, 11 and 12.
No.
So if one of them is starting not to feel very well, maybe one
more
of them's
defensive,
sick. Yeah, that could change. So as soon as I get back from my seminar in St. Louis, I'm going to go out there and spend a little time with them. That's 6 years after I trained those dogs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If those dogs get into a bad fight tomorrow and hurt each other, I don't consider that successful on my part.
Right.
It's not successful. We have to take it to the grave. And that success is not mine. It's 10% me, 90% owners.
Right. Correct. Right.
Okay. But the things I did with those dogs are things that the owners can implement very easily every single day.
Yeah.
I think
they can't handle a dog and do the things that I can do with a dog to give the dog what they need. They can't do it.
And there's certain to that point, there are certain things that we do as dog trainers, whether it be out of our own temperament, whether it be out of just our conditioning, whether it be just our understanding of animal behavior and the nuances of it, that we do that normal dog owners won't do. Right. And so it's easier for us to find success. It's easier for me to find success versus the new trainer I'm mentoring. Right. Just simply because of certain things that are triggering and the firing in my head. Right. And so I want to kind of dive into a little bit of that, what you were talking about. I made a post the other day where, I told people, I said, hey, do these rules sound familiar? Don't let your dog on the bed. Don't let your dog on the couch. Don't feed your dog human food. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't do this. And a lot of people are always usually confused or flabbergasted. Like, what's the point of having a dog if I can't do these things? And I told them very simply, I said, let me give you a culture lesson. There was a time where dogs used to live outside, right? And very recently, we started bringing dogs in the house with our nice things, our families and our children and our guests. And we learned very, very quickly that anything a dog could learn to do outside, the dog will also learn to do inside if given the opportunity, right? So your dog might eat things, chew things, destroy things, protect things, possess things, become territorial, possess a person, possess anything. And these are why dog trainers recommend these types of things. So that's usually my angle that I approach, like when I'm telling people, crate your dog sometimes, put your dog somewhere, this and this and that. What else if you'd be able to drop some advice or knowledge for dog trainers who, yes, we understand that that's told a lot in the dog training world. Is there anything else that you feel is super important to focus on?
Yeah. See, those things you just mentioned there, Brent, those are some of the little things I'm talking about that a lot of dog trainers are dismissive of. Okay. If you're a professional dog trainer and you know what you're doing, have your dogs on the bed, have them on, do what you want. But these aren't dog trainers. And it's a culmination of all these little habits that created the behaviors you want, that you don't want. And so what I tell people is I could take a dog to my home that has behavioral problems and do zero training, and the dog is going to go back better. You know why? Because I'm removing the dog out of the crack house. I'm getting the dog clean. I'm taking the dog out of the bad habits. And I'm getting the dog clean. But if I send the dog back to a crack house, it's going to be a junkie right away.
It's going to relapse.
So we have to change that. So one of the little things, I focus on how the people live with the dog. That's the biggest focus for me. All right. 100%. That's where we find the obedience. Give me 5 minutes twice a day and I'm happy. And people are always shocked by how little I ask for. I said, but the catch is 24/7 inside the home. That we can't go away from. And I think where people fail, but where they make a big difference too, is don't wait until you see a behavior you don't like or want to stop. Do it when the dog's behaving.
Right.
Dog's laying down quietly watching TV with you. Get up, walk through the dog and move them. Just move them. Go over there. Create a little more distance. Use that space. When the dog is doing right, the more you do things when the dog is in a good state of mind, the more effective it's going to be when the dog is in an asshole state of mind.
Yes, exactly.
That's exactly. I think that's something that, for the newer trainers listening, that's something that we really want you to pay attention. Write that down or make sure that you don't let that slide right by. And that goes, like, as you say that, Larry, I'm thinking of like all the different types of ways that different trainers have explained that same sort of thing. So for guys like Sean Thomas, the guy I was telling you about in Arizona, Top Dog, the way he described it was he drew like a little pyramid. Like every time they have a first lesson, I hope I'm not giving too much away for them. Sorry, guys.
The first whole system.
No, I'm just a little bit of stuff. I'm sure he'll be okay with this. Okay, so the first time they have like a first lesson with anybody, or an eval, maybe I forget like exactly which. They draw a little like pyramid on a whiteboard with a marker, and they go, okay, so this one pyramid represents a singular command that an owner expects. Like, I want my dog to know how to sit. And they look at this one pyramid as one individual thing. And then he goes, okay, well, the owners think it's like, can your dog sit? Can your dog not sit? It's my job as a trainer to go and dissect it all into different little things as I scaffold it from the bottom to the top and go, okay, your dog will sit, in the very widest part of the pyramid, which is also the bottom. Okay, can your dog sit for food in a quiet training room? Okay, good, And he'll go, what if I do 10 reps with the dog and he did this one right and he puts a plus, and this one right and puts a plus, this one wrong, puts 2 minuses and more pluses and so on. And there's like 7 pluses and, and 3 minuses. And he goes, how many of these repetitions here were valuable? And the client goes 7. And he goes, no, 10. Because teaching the dog 3 ways not to do something is just as valuable in teaching the sit command. Now, the reason why there are like little separations in a pyramid is to represent the scaffolding. You don't just go, okay, my dog can sit in the training room, let's go to the park.
No, that's what dog owners do, though.
which is why he makes it a point to explain. Yeah. And he also, but this is my favorite part, because a lot of dog trainers explain that. What he explains that's different is, as opposed to just making it like perfectly linear, he makes it a pyramid, because he says the foundation is so important. And the problem that people have is they do the 10 reps at the bottom, and then they do the 9 reps in the middle, and then they kind of skip the in between, and then they do like the 2 reps in the top, and then they wonder why the dog sucks at the park. But you missed all this middle ground, and the foundation of anything supports the rest of it. Right. So, that was something that I thought was really beneficial, not just in the way, because it's something that trainers know, but I find that really good trainers have a way of explaining to the owner. Yeah, and I think
in their own way. It's the same message, but their own way.
Correct. And in the way that the owner is capable of accepting, depending on how they are and who they are and all that good stuff. Right. So the way that I look at it is like, if your cup is full, like I look at it like a first time driver, like a student driver. We these days can drive and like think nothing of it. You just kind of sit there, everything is automatic for you, even if it's like a manual car. That when you're learning how to drive, you're so, system overload, worrying about every little thing, your speed, your mirrors and everything. But the more comfortable you get with everything, you can do it all. And you still have brain power left to like assess what's going on. Is this guy on his phone? Is this guy, drinking a milkshake? Is this guy? And that's what makes you good, is you have cap space left in your brain to just be present with the dog in the moment, and be present with the owner, and be aware of, is what I'm saying connecting with them right now? Is the dog learning the type of method that I'm trying to work with right now, or do I need to adjust my approach?
Absolutely. Ask a client to show you how they would teach a dog a specific behavior. Ask them to show you. Ask them to show you. Yeah. Because if they can show you how to teach a behavior, they're understanding what you're trying to get across to them.
Love that.
Right.
Love that.
But if they can't understand how to teach the behavior, you got to focus there. You have to help them there. Then have them show you, how would you change or stop this behavior?
That's
stop this
great.
mistake.
That's great.
And it could be the simplest thing. But once they understand that, you'll see them go, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Because then when problems arise, it's the same formula that will help them fix those problems. And until they understand those basics of learning and that communication between them and the dog, because Average dog owners don't understand that communication system what they're giving their dog. Once they understand that on the most simple, basic level, it's a game changer. And that
it opens up a whole nother
long-term, true, everlasting results. It really does.
That's a huge tip.
It's like they say the difference between learning what to think versus learning how to think.
Absolutely.
And learning how to think is what you want, right? So
absolutely.
Let me ask you a question, because you have more experience than Brent and I put together. And you have experience not just with the clients, like client dogs, but the seminar circuit and all that good stuff as well. So my question to you then is, do you ever find when people either come to seminars or, you know, when you were working with clients like directly, do you ever find that they step on themselves? They're a little more nervous because you're around. And if so, I just wanted to hear some of your tips on how to get trainers to like get the clients to ease off of themselves and just, you know, get out of your head and work your dog, because they do too much.
They're always nervous, but this is what I do. Okay. The first 3 seminars I ever did, Nashville, New York, West Virginia, were terrible. Okay. They just weren't good. I didn't know how to do them. I was new to it. I came in with a curriculum because back then everybody wanted e-collar stuff from me, right? After that 3rd one, I knew they were no good. I said, fuck this, I got to change something. I'm going to be me. And from that day, I changed everything to where now there is no curriculum. You're coming to these seminars. It's not me standing there thinking who I am, trying to be a teacher. I'm your employee. I work for you.
Right.
Tell me what you need.
So I provide you, as long as I have the ability, whatever you want. But normally before a seminar, I reach out to everyone. I put out a video, something, and I explain to them. I totally understand what it feels like, especially because a lot of them are dog trainers. I understand how stressful it is coming into these things with a dog.
Right.
And I tell them, don't be. You there is no failing here. Everyone's in the same boat. And I tell them, you're going to fail, but so am I. The difference is you're going to fail once. I'm going to fail multiple times. But before it's all said and done, we're going to fix it all together. And so this is very informal. There is no stress involved. And we really do have a good time at these things. We laugh. We have a good time. There's always people that cry, because I always listen. Everyone has personal things in their lives. That affects your issues with your dog big time. And if you can't get deep down inside of that stuff, you're just putting a Band-Aid on things. You just are. And so when you can get close to people like that and really get them
connect,
so that they trust you. When you make that connection, you have to be able to connect with these. It does incredible things. Absolutely incredible things. It really does. But they're always, I start off right from the beginning and I make sure everyone's loose, because I'm a lot more nervous than they are. People have high expectations, right?
Absolutely.
I mean,
people have high expectations, but relatively, I don't want to say simple issues, but there are simple answers to those issues. You know what I mean?
I get it, but at the same time, it's like I'm going to a seminar with Larry Krohn. I get what you're saying. For sure.
And so the best thing that ever happened for me was those first 3 shitty seminars where I knew they weren't good. It was the best. And I never forget that. And I never stopped talking about it, because from that day on, I did everything I could to make sure everyone got their money's worth. You know?
I love that.
And so we have a good time at these things. We really do. You know, I love the whole social aspect of it. You know, I love going out at night and having dinner and stuff and just talking to people. It's a whole, listen, if I feel like someone didn't get enough, we meet at night. We train. Here's my whole, this is where I'm staying. Let's train dogs. You know, you have to be willing to do that.
You know, it's really, sorry, real quick. So it's cool, because I'm going to bring back my theme that I constantly talk about. My dad's a physician, and he used to always have this poster above his computer in his practice, and it said, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Right. And it's funny because out of all the personalities on the internet, you know, to my perspective, and I'm sure a lot of people can agree, you're like this Papa Bear. You're like this, you're like this strong, loving, caring, grizzly man who's
grizzly man.
Who's I don't know if I use it's only because of hair. I don't know what that fucking means. But the idea is like there are some people who have a knack for connecting and have empathy and compassion, and it's easy for people to feel safe around you. You know, that's the feeling I get, you know, when I watch your videos. I'm like, this guy fucking cares.
Pretty much what he's asking is, will you hold him?
Yes. If I'm cold, will you hold me? But you get my point. And I think that's really awesome, because I think that is going back to my dad's poster. It's like, you know, and Jonas Black touched based on this the other day. He says people are more willing to take criticism or correction from you when they trust you.
Right.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And it's
well, it's the same thing with the dogs. Exactly. I tell people
absolutely
a correction has a lot more meaning when there's a relationship there with the animal.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, big difference, really big difference. You know,
that Jonas is someone I was going to bring up right now anyway, because we were talking about the seminar circuit and we were talking about getting the client comfortable.
Do you know Jonas? Do you know Jonas?
Yeah. Like we haven't met, but we talk on line.
Yeah. He's cool.
He's awesome. So
I like Jonas.
His what he was telling us about, and we were on this topic, how to get the client comfortable, and we were kind of approaching it from the angle of like, hey, listen, newer dog trainers, don't walk into the client's home to do a lesson, because I get it's weird. You're in someone else's house. If you're not that experienced in dog training, you're kind of like a 1 or 2 trick pony, and there's a certain insecurity associated with that. Like, I really hope this goes well type thing.
Yeah.
But then you walk in there and you're just kind of like a textbook reciting words at them, and it doesn't sound real almost, right? It's just a lot of jargon, but it's what they know at the time, and that's it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So Jonas was explaining to us, and we had a really good laugh about, he was like, dude, I fucking roll up on my Harley and like, you know, cut off like a sleeveless shirt and stuff like that, you know. And the thing is, it's just me. It's me, like, I'm being myself, but at the same time, it's
they
kind
feel
of
my passion. They feel my
right.
energy.
Well, they feel my passion, my energy, but at the same time, it's a tactical approach for me to show them that this is not some stuffy formal. You guys can be real. You guys can just be you. So I'm kind of clearing the air without saying anything.
Yeah, sure.
You know?
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. I don't, you know, I used to do the in-home thing a lot. I did the free demo thing. I've done all of that stuff, you know, and I get a little more leeway now on just being, listen, a couple of weeks ago, a high profile client was coming to pick up her dog, and my wife made me go inside and change my clothes.
What are wives for? You know, that's what
she literally said I looked like a combination of an Eastern Kentucky mountain man and NWA.
NWA, what were you wearing?
He probably had like a bandana on. Or
I had on a beanie with dark sunglasses and a camo jacket, and my beard was big. And I said, no, I'm not going to. This is, you know, I know them. So I'm like a Sally Mander. I kind of blend it all.
I was gonna say.
I'm a big country music guy, but I'm a big rap guy too.
You love that.
Love that. And so I don't stay in. I embrace everything. I love everything. Where's your background? Your ancestors from, Brent?
Oh, me. My family's from half Mexican, half Peruvian.
I knew it.
How'd you know?
Peruvian. Because my wife's Peruvian.
Yeah. No shit.
Yeah.
That's
so I
funny.
said, I wanted to say this freaking guy looks Peruvian, but you know,
if you're just
all Mexican, you're gonna be like, "Fuck you, I look Peruvian." No, I don't.
Yeah. Well, that's so awesome. Yeah, that's
I knew it.
Hilarious. That's hilarious.
I knew it. I could spot you a mile away.
Yeah. So you know, your wife cooks. I'm sure she has.
No, she cooks nothing.
No,
I cook. I cook. She fixes things. I cook.
Well, you know, I'm sure there's a Peruvian grandma rolling in her grave right now.
Well, you guys have good. You're in LA.
I'm in LA. Yeah, we got Mario's out here. We got in Hollywood. We have a lot of good cuisine.
We miss Peruvian food, big.
I'm sure you don't get a lot of that in Kentucky. So
no, we were in Miami 2 years ago, and we were in heaven. Food, and one of our favorite restaurants in the world is in DC. I took her to a Mark Anthony concert last year, and
amazing.
We had some good Peruvian food, but it's been a while.
Have you been to Peru?
I've been a couple of times because of work. We've never gone together. I love Peru. Absolutely.
Do you know? So we have 2 dog training sisters in South America that we interviewed a while back, and they love you. They love you. Vanessa and Melissa Velez.
Yeah.
One trains in Peru, and they kind of,
Nice.
they do e-collar, and it's still kind of weird out there in South America. But yeah, if you give them a shout out, I'm sure they would love it.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Melissa and Vanessa Velez. Yeah.
Yes, I need to come visit. We need a Peruvian trip.
Yes, we'll hit them up.
My kids are dying to go too. We'd like to get down there. Listen, I was fortunate enough to spend some time on the Mexican border, and I love the Mexican culture. I absolutely love it. Last year, right before the COVID thing, I was down in Las Cruces, New Mexico for 45 days. I was in heaven. I was for 45 days, I was Mexican again. It was absolutely fantastic.
You got a tan and everything.
I ate like a king, and just to be back down in the Southwest is pretty damn awesome.
How's your Spanish, Larry? Pretty good?
My Spanish used to be very good. And once I came to Kentucky,
you don't use it, you lose it kind of thing, right?
No. But when I was down on the border, I listened only to Spanish music. I watched Spanish soap operas. I had to learn it because what you learn in the academy, you think you know it. I did good with the books and the grades, and it was tough. 4 or 5 hours of college level Spanish a day for 6 months. You think you're hot shit.
Yeah, you can talk to a Spaniard, but not a Mexican.
I was going to say, until you talk to me.
Yeah, you get down on the border. I did my first interview. I asked the first question, and I was like, holy shit, what did he say?
I was going to say, because like native Spanish speakers, because I'm Hispanic. I'm strictly like Mexican in my lineage, and my parents are from Mexico. They were brought here as kids.
Yeah.
So, I still bounce back and forth a ton, and I actually spent a decent amount of time there growing up. I would go there in the summers because my dad lived there when I was off track for school. And so I notice now, and I laugh about it so hard because my girlfriend is like an Irish redhead who knows zero Spanish. And so whenever I speak Spanish, she understands because I can speak Spanish with an American like dialect in it.
Right.
Fluctuation of my voice and stuff like that. When my tío Juan speaks Spanish, it is lightning fast. And it's just, and she's like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, he told me to go and take out the garbage. And she's like, oh, okay. And I just think it's the funniest thing in the world. But I know exactly what you're saying.
And here's the thing. This is what I tell everyone. I used to love being with my wife's family, the whole Peruvian side of things. Just a good time. I grew up in a very Italian household in Jersey. There's very little difference between the Italian culture and the Mexican culture. It's the same.
Yep.
It's the freaking same.
It's like
all
pasta,
based
tortillas.
on family and loud people and food.
I was gonna say big ass family
and opinions. And I call it, I was introduced to this term called mom-splaining, where like moms tell you how to live your life all your life.
Listen, my wife is very quiet and mild-mannered, right? Okay. And when we started dating, the first time she had dinner at my house, my extended family was over too. She was just so quiet like a mouse, so uncomfortable. And then all of a sudden she exploded in laughter and was like crying. And she was so scared and embarrassed and upset that she was laughing, but she couldn't stop. And we're all looking at her and going, what's so funny? And she couldn't even talk. Till finally she explained why she was laughing. It was so loud, and her family's very proper and quiet. Okay. And it was so loud at my table and everyone's yelling. And I guess eventually what set her over the top is someone screamed, pass the fucking meatballs. She just lost it. I was like, yeah, I guess that's kind of normal in my house,
it's exactly what like a Hollywood writer would put in a script.
Yeah. It's funny how the opposites attract like that, because my girlfriend loves my grandma, and my grandma keeps it real, please believe. So like it is the funniest thing how every time I'll talk to my grandma on the phone or something, or my mom or somebody like that, my girlfriend would be like, oh my God, I miss your grandma so much. She is just like, she's such a thug and she's so funny. And I'm like, yeah, it is funny how people like really enjoy the different thing.
Grandmothers are the best.
Yeah.
The best, for sure.
They bridge all these generations together.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yep.
It's really, really beautiful.
Yep. Can I bring us back? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
No, you're good. No, this is
it's a podcast. That's what we do.
Yeah, right. So I want to talk then about bridging those gaps.
Yeah.
Way to bring it back. Way to bring it back.
Yes. Really nice. Yeah. No, but here's, and this is a really real thing, because now to bring it back to dog training, I have a client currently. I just did a first lesson with a client who her daughter, who was older, the daughter called me to set it all up from Chicago, because her mom, who lives here in Phoenix, is old enough to be like in an assisted living facility.
Yeah.
She's older, and she got herself a toy poodle puppy. And she also has COPD, like chronic, pulmonary issues. And so what I noticed, I went to her place, and, we met and did our first lesson, and I was like, man, just seeing the interior, I was like, it's amazing how the world was so different. But to bring it back to dog training, it's crazy how like the dog training world is young. Even 20, 30 years ago, it was the landscape was nothing like it is today. And what I want to ask you then, as somebody who's seen it all, do you find that in today's dog training world, Tyler Muto told us it's insane how newer trainers can just learn so fast because of like YouTube and everything else. Like what it took them 6 years to learn, someone picks up in like a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
Is there a downside to that, do you think?
Yes, absolutely. I'm not one of those people that think it's a bad thing that younger trainers have the ability to learn on social media. I think it's good for them.
Right.
When I work with younger trainers, my goal is to save them the years of mistakes that I made. That's my goal, right?
Right.
The problem is they have to be going in the right direction on who they're learning from.
Yeah.
And everything looks shiny and unicorny and, freaking fairy farts online. And let's face it, there's a lot of fraud out there, and anyone can look good online. Right. And I think it's sad to say, but there's a lot more bad dog training out there than good dog training. There just is, as much as I love.
I think also a lot of dog training is going unguided too.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And look, the e-collar has been good to me, right? That's what a lot of people know me from. My book has been insanely successful. The whole purpose of the book was that a sixth grader could read that book, and if they were going to use an e-collar on their dog, not destroy their dog. Right. That was the purpose. I've done pretty well there, but the truth is, it's caused a lot of damage in the wrong hands, because if you're a good dog trainer, the e-collar can do wonderful things for you. Yeah. If you're a bad dog trainer, it's going to destroy you, and the dog's going to pay the price. Yeah. And that's happening over and over and over again. But you know what? The scary part is it's not just dog trainers. The general public that doesn't deal with the dog trainer, they have a problem. And right. I get those messages every day. I'm having this issue. What kind of e-collar should I get? It's like, holy shit, this is scary. Right. That's not going to turn out well.
Right.
So I just wish newer trainers that start studying under someone just really do a lot of homework and research, and just get with the right people. Just get with the right people. If it wasn't for people like Pat Nolan and Mark Goldberg, who have been doing e-collar stuff longer than me and put stuff out, and Bart Ballone is the godfather of modern dog training, and put so much into the world of e-collars, then I don't have the ability to do that and have the success I've had with it. I've had that success because of the giants that came before me, and there were giants that came before me that were absolutely horrendous with dogs that I learned even more from, because I knew exactly who I didn't want to be. Right. And that didn't take me long to realize that. Thank God. Thank God for that. But you have to seek out people with, a really good history and a good past, and that know what they're doing. And if they could do that, because of today's social media, Jesus Christmas, there's so much stuff online that you can do now, and you could really learn a lot. But no matter what you do online, there's no substitute from putting your hands on dogs, and you have to put your hands on a lot of dogs.
That's exactly, almost word for word, what Michael Ellis said.
Yeah, you have to. You just there is no substitute, because it's like me with the Spanish. It was great with the books, right? But the second I put it into the real world, I was like, holy fuck, this is a whole different world. And there you had to learn. You had to learn it, because if you're out in the middle of the desert with 100 people on the ground and they're talking about slitting your throat, you need to have to understand them.
Right. You're like, come on, one more time. Come again.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really important. And that's what forced me to really learn the language. And it's the same thing with the dogs. If you're dealing with a dog that has the capability of really hurting you, then you really better know what the hell you're doing. You know, it's the same concept in anything you do in life. You know, you have to know it and know it well, and you have to know it for real.
You have to be able to apply it. Can I ask you, so then with that being said, how do you feel about, it seems that old timey dog training was very individual and very like guarded, and everybody kind of had their secrets and wouldn't share. But newer dog training, it seems like dog training as a profession is finally catching on with other things, and that the way to get good is you sharpen your tools, and the way to sharpen your tools is you test your mettle against other people with sharp tools. And you know, we look at things like I think actually that in dog training started in the sport dog world, because there are clubs, not to mention competitions. And so but in the pet dog world, you know, Tyler Muto started Consider the Dog. Sarah Brewski starting her very popular Facebook page, you know, that you join and stuff like that. And she does seminar, you know, and they kind of mix it up with all kinds of different people. So I guess my question to you is, do you think that that's a good thing that we should be doing? Should we be looking to do more of that? Get trainers together to all talk and get together and train. Right. And see what works and see what doesn't.
Listen, one of the best weekends I've ever had in dog training was, I don't know, around probably 11, 12 years ago. Myself and a bunch of dog trainers met down in Atlanta to train dogs all weekend and sit around and bullshit and talk dog training and talk business. And it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing, because everyone had something to contribute, and you learn from everybody. There's so much to learn. The best dog trainers out there, there's a lot of old time dog trainers that have been doing this forever. The ones that have continued to evolve and learn with the times, because dog training today is better than it's ever been, in a nutshell, for the most part. Okay. There's less compulsion and more compassion for the animal, while producing better looking animals. The trainers that have been doing this and come up through the old school, where things were real rough but continue to evolve, they're some of the best dog trainers in the world. The trainers that refuse to evolve and are still using things that were being done 20, 30, 40 years ago, they're not going, they can't make it.
They'll naturally die out.
Absolutely, because the dogs don't lie. Look at a Schutzhund competition from 1980 and look at a Schutzhund competition today. Back then, the dogs were like this. Oh my God!
With their forced retrieves,
boom, boom, like just full of life. And
it's like watching the Olympics. It's like watching the Olympics. You know, it's like training styles are different now.
Yeah, because it's like everything. Science is better. You know, athletics. I'm watching 5'10" white kids do these windmills with their arm going through their rim, with their head above the rim.
Yeah, I've seen that.
What the hell is going on today?
I've seen that.
That didn't happen 20 years ago.
It's the Red Bull. It's Red Bull.
You know what I mean? Listen, I was 5'10" and 15 years old when I first dunked a basketball, and that was a big thing. People were like, "This white kid could dunk a basketball."
You can dunk on a 10-foot rim. That's amazing. I get super close.
Today, there's kids jumping through the friggin' rim.
I've seen that, and I'm always amazed. It looks so beautiful to me when they have time to jump and do this with their legs in the air while they're just like, boo.
But the point is, where athletics are going, it's insane. But it's the same thing with dog training. You look at some of these people, the things they're doing with these dogs, and there's some really good young dog trainers out there that are just so talented, and I love to watch it. And I'll support anyone that's doing right by the animal and producing beautiful work like that, you know.
Can I ask you a question, Larry, that you may not know the answer to, and if you don't, it's fine, but I just want some advice. So somebody who's been doing this as long as you, somebody who's met as many trainers as you, how do we, Brent and I, as a podcast, how do we go about getting more trainers who train differently than us on? Sarah Brewski is the only
R+ trainer
that we've had on, and it's not for lack of trying. we've reached out to all kinds of pure positive trainers, and they just don't. And we want them on. I don't know if it's because they assume we're going to like attack them, which we're not, or whatever. But is there a way to just let them know, like, listen, we just want to talk. We just want to make dog training better.
Yeah, just keep putting stuff out and keep growing your channel. They'll want to come on then.
Yeah.
You know, but you just have to just keep reaching out. Yeah. I'm not good like that too. I don't like asking people to come on I'm just awful. You know, normally it's people that are submitted by someone else, because I hate bothering people and asking people to do that. I'm just not comfortable doing it. Listen, what's the worst thing that could happen? They say no. I did it one time. I wanted to do something with someone, and I think I probably had several whiskeys, and I sent them an email, and they said no. I was like, "Fuck, this sucks." You know? But I survived. It wasn't the end of the world. And on all kidding aside, guys, you guys are fantastic at what you do. Like, you guys are really, really good at this. You know, and I just think you got to just keep asking, because especially when someone has something to promote, something to sell.
Exactly.
They're, you know, they want to get out there and do it. And, you know, they're not using their head if they're not, because the more exposure they can get, because listen, some of the best dog trainers in the world are real popular in the dog training world, but that's not where the numbers are. The numbers are in the average pet dog owner across the world, especially in the United States. And those are the people you have to reach out to. You know, that's the segment that you have to grab. And that's why, if you're going to have success in changing the dog training world, it's not trying to change dog trainers. You have to educate the general population. If we can educate the general population,
they'll seek out better trainers.
That's what stops that vicious cycle. Now they know what to look for, because to an average dog owner, they trust any dog trainer they talk to until it's too late.
Right.
True.
You know what I mean? And so, I mean, that's where we got to focus on.
Yeah. And it's funny, because the market is controlled, at least from the consumer level. It's controlled by marketing. So it's controlled by the verbiage, the rhetoric. It's controlled by the deals. It's controlled by all that stuff. And if we can educate dog owners at a higher level to be smarter, to ask the right questions, to know what they're looking for, then it's easier for now dog trainers to step up to the plate and rise to the occasion.
Right.
And it's why the force-free world is so much bigger than, you know, the non-force-free world, because it sounds
pretty. Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. You know, if you show shock collars and prong collars to the general public, and then you show clickers and, you know, Christie cookies to dogs, they're going to be like, I want to go with that.
I want that.
Right.
And that's where the masses are. That's where the numbers are, you know, and as dog trainers, we're all failing at changing that. We really are.
Yeah. You know, to Sarah Brewski's credit, she's the R+ trainer that we had on. She was the one. She's the only one on our podcast or not in the R+ world who I've ever heard who called out the R+ world for not being more active and open in having these dialogues, because there's other dog training podcasts out there, and she says every time she's ever heard of like a pure positive trainer and a balance trainer speak, it was on the balance trainers podcast who they're the one who made the effort.
Right.
And so I do like where things are going, even in that sense, and I do like that there's almost like pressure getting put on people, like, listen, nobody's telling you have to train this way or that way, but talk. Be a part of the conversation and mix it up a little bit, you know, and to see what, and like you said, it's all about having the wherewithal to understand, you know, this is what works, this is what doesn't. But also, if you're going to take in all this new info, try it. I think that's another of the downsides from online training is somebody tries something for 2 days and then try something else for 2 days, and they just kind of stay trying new things and never really stick with something long enough to give it a real shot.
You know what it is, Mariano? A lot of the purely positive or force-free world, they have this conception of we train a specific way or use a tool a specific way when they couldn't be further from the truth. When I spoke at the IACP conference last year, and there was a couple of big name purely positive trainers there. And after I spoke, one of them was Grisha Stewart, who's very big in the purely positive world. After I spoke, me and her talked, and she said, I'd love to sit down and talk with you and do something together, because I think she was probably shocked on the things I had to say.
Shocked.
Right. You're funny. Peruvians are all funny.
That's great.
Because I think, here's this guy who's known for e-collars, and I spent all 2.5 hours or 3, whatever it was, really harping on people using compassion for the animal and stopping the bullshit of mistreating the animal, and I think she was probably a little surprised by that. And I'd have a conversation with her any day. And especially when she was doing her presentation on BAT, I know things like that are always downlooked. I spoke up and I said, hey, just so you know, Grisha, that is something I use in my program. With aggressive dogs, I do use it, and she appreciated that very much. I don't shy away from things that the purely positive community do. I use everything.
Right.
I am a lot more positive. I don't use a lot of compulsion in dog training.
Right.
I just don't. Very little. If I have to use it, I use it. But the better you get at training dogs, the less punishment.
The less you have to use it. I agree with you. I think what I've been saying for a little bit now is, the funny thing about like balanced dog training is a good balanced dog trainer is really not that balanced.
No, exactly.
It's more like a lot of motivational work and a few corrections here and there. And I tell my clients this when I don't know if you guys are like me, but a lot of times if a client's having an issue with correcting, it either has to do with their timing is off, so that they're not marking appropriately, so the dog doesn't get what the correction was for, or their timing is okay, but they're not correcting something like firm enough. And so the dog like gets it and just doesn't care or whatever.
And I prefer the term versatile trainer over balanced trainer.
There you go.
And if you look on my website, I called myself a purely positive balanced trainer bursting with versatility. And that there's a little thing behind that. I was having this conversation with the trainer, and they were a purely positive trainer, and they just wanted to fight. And they wanted to know, with your talent, why do you have to use e-collars, this and that? What kind of trainer are you? And some dog trainer, no, like what kind of trainer? They wanted me here say something.
I hear you.
And I said, well, I'm a purely and what I told her was, I said, I'm a purely positive, balanced trainer bursting with versatility. And she was just, she was so pissed. And I used it from that day on,
Sounds
so
like
stuck with it.
So
that sounds like a commercial, like
exactly.
A purely positive, balanced trainer bursting with versatility.
But I've had people contact me and say, that's impossible. There's no such thing. I'm like, oh,
be like, God. We're doing it. We're doing it.
Right. Let me show you. Yeah.
That's the modern dog trainer right there.
Absolutely.
That's
sure.
I had a question for you. So in that Sarah Brewski episode, we talked about kind of how shits and clubs have clubs, and you guys are able to share information and you get better and bounce off of each other. Agility has clubs. There's in the working dog world, there's a lot of clubs where people can, in modern day, it's kind of dying off, but there is no pet dog training clubs, as we talked about. And so I have a nonprofit where our main mission is we train fosters, volunteers. We collect trainers in Los Angeles, and we pretty much ask trainers volunteer our time, and let's work together and let's help a collective of dogs. So I have relationships with over 20 rescue organizations here in LA.
Cool.
And this is something where, that networking, that cross-pollination that we're really interested in starting. Obviously we're starting here in LA because that's where I'm located, but this is something with the podcast. We've had so many people, so many trainers who are like, how can I help? Is there any way I can help? And I checked, and we can actually do stuff in different cities, and help animal rescues in need, dogs who've been returned. But I wanted to see if, I'm not sure exactly the programs that we could create, but I just wanted to ask you for your support, if there's any support that you could give, whether it be speaking or whether it be, just putting it on your Instagram or whatever.
Anytime,
it might be.
Absolutely. Sure.
Yeah.
Bring me out, take me to Barrio Cafe. Absolutely.
Hell yeah. No, we would love that. We would love that, because and I'm just going to brainstorm it out loud for everybody. What my goal was to have mentor guest dog trainers in that local town, and have other volunteers come in, where pretty much all you have to do is volunteer your time for that week or for the hours that you could, and you can learn and work with other trainers in hands-on helping rescue animals, right?
Listen, imagine what you can do money-wise if you brought in 5 to 10 popular trainers that donated their time to come meet with a huge group of people to talk to them and work with dogs and stuff as a fundraiser. No charge.
Right.
Donate what you can. Things like that generate a lot of money.
Right.
People love helping animals.
100%. Well, and money wise aside, I mean, all the money is just going to go to creating more events where we can cross pollinate and we can help rescue animals.
But that's exactly the point, because
it can feed itself.
Right. Similar deal here was, I work with the foundation here in Phoenix, and we throw different types of events, dog adoption events, of course, but also like golf tournaments and stuff like that to benefit different kinds of charities and things. And the point of the money is you do good with the money, so then you bring it in and then you use a little bit of the money to make the event even bigger next time. So you bring in more money and so on and so on. Right. And you help out more people.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm always down, guys. Always.
Thank you, man. That's awesome. I appreciate that. So I wanted to talk a little bit back to the e-collar stuff where e-collar, there's a lot of talk to us about the hate, right? It's funny because you always approach, at least people who want to watch your videos, you always approach it and give it context and say, guys, it's a tool. We don't really, you shouldn't rely on it too much, right? Like you're very clear about it versus other personalities on the internet. How much hate do you get and how do you navigate that hate?
I don't.
Interesting.
I just don't. And here's why. I don't give them reason to.
Interesting.
I've gotten more hate from the balanced side of dog training than the purely positive side by far.
Wow.
Like not even close, not even close, because you don't hear me calling out purely positive. I don't call out anyone by name.
Sure.
Normally when I'm pissed off and I'm bitching about something, it's about doing harm to the animal. Okay. And I don't see purely positive people physically doing harm to an animal.
Right.
And if I had to send one of my own dogs to a purely positive trainer that maybe doesn't have the capabilities of working with difficult dogs, or a so-called balanced trainer who I know whoops the shit out of dogs, my dog's going to the purely positive trainer every time. Right. Plain and simple. Because the second someone mistreats my animal, I'm going to throat stomp you. I have no tolerance for it. I have no tolerance for seeing someone do bad things to a dog. I just don't. And it physically affects me. It really does. And before, I had to contain myself because of my job. I have had to have I had to be careful of everything I did and say because of my security clearance and what I did for a living. Now the gloves are off. I could be a fucking savage, and some people aren't going to like that. They're not going to like that. It's not going to be good for some people. So these people who like to run their mouth and talk about me and bring me up, I've always listened and I've taken notes. A lot of these people, they're stupid for doing that because I know a lot of shit they've done in the past. I know people that have worked for them. I know apprentices. I know clients, and they're stupid for running their mouth because, I kept my mouth shut for a long time. I just don't have tolerance for the mistreatment of the animal. I just don't, but no, I don't. I guess I get away from the original question. I really get very little hate, and I think the biggest reason why is I show the work. I always show it, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's sloppy, whether it's ugly. People want to see the real stuff. Out of the 500 and something videos I have, there's not a single video that I could watch where I could say, wow, that was awesome, or I didn't make any mistakes.
You're always trying to get better.
I could show you a ton of things I could have done better, but that's why videos are so important. But so many people are scared to put videos out there because they don't want to be ridiculed. Right. And I understand it. I understand it because it sucks. When people actually make YouTube videos about you and put your name in the title because they normally get 3 views on a video and they'll get 3,000 because they're bashing me. That sucks, but what are you going to do? That's part of it. If you put stuff out there, you have to be willing to take it. You know?
We're in the same camp as you in that we're not really fans of naming names if it's something negative.
I don't do it.
I hear you. And especially in the case, if it's something negative, I just don't want to give them the free publicity.
Absolutely.
With that being said, though, something that's always amazed me is, and I asked this to every big, I mean, you've answered it already, but I just wanted to make you aware of this. I asked this to every bigger name online that we talk with. Do you guys ever get tired of the negativity, balance wherever it's coming from? And it's a surprise, not that they get it, because YouTube is filled with nothing but experts, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that it gets to them, every single one of them, and I'm like, wow, but
sometimes,
right.
95% of the time you just laugh it off in a roll. It used to bother me a lot because I couldn't understand it. I'm like, why does this guy hate me? I'm like, I'm doing a pretty good job here. I'm not scamming no one. I give my,
right.
And it used to bother me years ago. Yeah. Now, like, there's times like yesterday, I called some woman a jerk off online. My wife's like right now appalled. And first of all, I didn't know it was a woman. By the name, I couldn't tell. But she just said something very sarcastic on one of my comments. And it was literally right after my puppy just threw up in his crate and was rolling around it on the way back from the vet.
You're like, no.
And so I'm already friggin' done.
Right.
I see this comment. And so that person, no matter what, was going to be a jerk off at that moment. And so the timing of things, almost always you let things go and you don't even respond to it. But sometimes if you're in the wrong mindset, like I was at that moment, it's like, F you, this, you know what I mean? And you know what? I apologize publicly on the comment to her, and I apologize privately because I shouldn't have called her a jerk off, even though she was wrong on being sarcastic. I should have just ignored it. You know what I mean? Right. But I'm human. I'm normal, and I have bad days. Mostly good days, but you come at me when I'm in a really bad mood, it's a whole different story,
Right. Well, everybody, I mean, I think it's that weird, it's like the straw that broke the camel's back.
Sure,
thing,
absolutely.
Right? That's how most people are. When you're just your normal self, you can brush off a lot of the negativity. But sometimes when you're already off center, it just takes a little push. And I find that so interesting, Yeah. I guess it's cool because it's humanizing to the big dog trainer names out there. It's because the thing is, again, with this podcast being geared toward newer trainers, they're so afraid of it. They don't get backlash really because they don't have like a big following necessarily, but they don't put anything out because they're afraid of negativity. So they never get the big following. And so we tell them, like, listen, man, everybody, like, you're never going to please everyone. Do the best work you can to make yourself.
That's it.
To make yourself as free of it as you can possibly be. And not only for the sake of online, but for the sake of the dog and the client. But it's never going to work.
Yeah. And even if you're not posting stuff, videotape yourself and watch it.
Yes.
Analyze all the little things you're doing, because I guarantee you'll see things that you can do better. There's no doubt about it.
I couldn't agree more. That's something that I learned with COVID when all the shutdowns started. And right at that moment, it just worked out in the way that like all my board and train dogs were like older people who were nervous about doing the follow-ups after the board and train program.
Yeah.
So we transitioned over to onlines. And so I would do it on Zoom like this, and I would record the whole thing, and then I would send it back to them, so that when they're drilling and then they see me drilling and then they go back to drilling, they see the difference and they're like, oh, I see what I'm doing now. And I learned at that moment how important it is to see yourself from another angle.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
I come from a performance background. I was like a dancer and a singer and a performer for many years when I was younger. And that's all we ever did was record, look, record, look, record, look. And that has helped me so much, and kind of like just rinsing and repeating and fixing and adjusting in those fields, but definitely.
Well, I'm having a hard time understanding. Could you show us?
Yeah.
You stop it. That's a dark part of my path.
He's a good singer. He's a really good singer.
Really?
Yeah. Follow me on my personal page. You'll see some songs that I put in.
Okay. Yeah, no, I will for sure.
Yeah, check it out.
Sort of related. It has to do, it's actually from one of our listeners on Instagram. She messaged us, I want to say earlier today or last night.
Yeah.
Yep.
Her name is Callie. Shout out to Callie. Hello.
Callie or Kaylee. Sorry.
Looks like Callie. And so her question was this: what do you feel the role of owners should be in trying to protect the right for us to have access to tools is? And I think she was asking that because when we talked with Jonas, there's in Europe, like certain tools are banned and certain breeds and stuff are banned, but in the US, it's slowly gaining a tiny bit of steam to ban certain tools in certain places. Yeah. And so her question was, should owners be active in trying to make sure that doesn't happen?
Yeah, owners have to speak up and show the benefits and speak on how it improved their lives, how it saved their animal. Because there's a lot of people out there that really couldn't keep an animal in their home if it wasn't for the tool. If you have I'll give you an example. This was several years ago, but I don't know, she popped in. I had a client, she was in her 70s, had a big Alaskan Malamute and a Rottweiler. And they were pretty out of control. Now, we can do all the training in the world with those dogs, but without leveling the playing field physically between her and those dogs, there's no way she can keep those dogs together. It was rough.
100%.
Right.
And she made it very clear, I'm not getting rid of one of these dogs. And it was bad. So the beautiful thing about the e-collar is when it's done properly as part of an overall program. That's what's important. As part of an overall program, just in addition to a
supplement to
educated program, it takes the whole physical aspect out of it to make it easier for all human beings.
Absolutely.
Okay? Whether you're an 80-pound, freshman girl, or a 75-year-old elderly man. It helps everyone equally by eliminating the physical incapabilities that you may have.
Right.
I'm working with an 80-year-old man right now with a 90-pound
absolutely
dog.
And in fact, that's exactly so the client I was telling you about, the one who lives in the assisted living facility with the puppy, I lucked out in that puppy's very sweet, however, on top of the COPD and just being older in general, she has like hand issues and all kinds, so we couldn't really do leash pressure. So she's nervous about e-collar. So I'm going to get her the Educator PG, the purely vibration collar. And we're going to try that out, and see how that goes. But if I can condition the dog, food, leash, and all that good stuff to that as a finished product, I think that's going to be the way to go for her.
Yeah. And it really is so beneficial to so many. And whenever these things come out and petitions happen and people sign, it's the dog training world that jumps on and is doing That's not where the numbers are. We need the general public to jump on. And the general public, for the most part, is on that purely positive side because they don't understand the concept. Because if you go to YouTube and you pull up e-collar training, bless you, there's going to be popular trainers that pop up that show you your dog does this, turn it to 100 and hold it for 3 seconds. Guess what? If you're an average dog owner, what do you think about that tool? Get rid of it. Look what he's doing to the dog.
You're right.
That's what we're up against. You got these douchebags that make it harder for all of us. And that goes back to the whole video rant I did about the place command. It had nothing to do with the place command. It had to do with abusive dog trainers, frying dogs to a specific object, not allowing them to move for hours at a time, to where the dogs become so helpless and scared to make a mistake. That's what the whole purpose of that rant was, because I see the videos every single day. And they're teaching others to do that. That's a problem,
What does it look like? What are some things that dog owners and could do to, other than publicize, tell their friends, post it on the internet? What does it look like?
I don't know what exactly to look like, but I'll tell you what people tell me. If I get someone from California or Seattle, Washington that wants to do a board and train with me, I persuade them very hard not to. Because for me, the biggest benefit of a board and train is the after effect, that owner education that I spend time. And I can't do that with someone across the country. And so there's good trainers every place that I'll send them to. But a lot of people just say, no, we're coming to you. And I ask them why. Why are you so gung-ho on coming here? And 100% of the time, it's the same reason. They say, we see how you treat the animal and how the animal acts around you. That's all they care about. That's all they care about. That's really important to people. And so if the average dog owner can start looking at the attitude of the dog when it's with some of these trainers, if they learn how to if someone can educate them on what to look for, what does that dog look like? Does that dog look like a zombie, or does he look like a dog that's enjoying his life? Not all dogs are going to be bouncy and happy, but you can tell when a dog is scared to make a mistake and not having a very good time in life.
What does that look like teaching people? Is that like a new TV show? Is that like just, how do we do that?
A really awesome podcast.
Well, you know,
Is
I
it
do
Brent
think
doing a musical number?
Shut up. Shut up.
that's right. Yeah, Nutcracker, maybe.
Yeah.
Can we see the Nutcracker?
You want to see my tights? You want to see my tights, Larry?
Yeah, it's. I don't think there's an easy answer to it. You know, there really isn't. We need more people to do their own research, and that's going to be hard to do. You know,
Right.
it just really is. But listen, there's dog trainers out there that don't train their own dogs, that buy trained dogs. You know, they've never really trained the dog to a high level.
Yep.
You know, I don't know what the right answer is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What's that old
Um,
saying? Like the shoemaker's children go barefoot
yes.
type. Yeah.
Yeah. Meet a dog trainer in public.
Yep.
Ask to
Yeah.
meet them in public with their dogs. Okay. What are their dogs like off leash, no tools? What are
Right.
they like?
Mhm.
Do they have control? Can the
Mhm.
dogs run around and be dogs and be happy?
Mhm.
If not, what makes you think they're going to get your dogs there? It's not going to
Exactly.
happen.
Exactly.
You know,
Mhm.
it's not going to happen. And that's a really small test. Years, I don't have to do it anymore. I'm very fortunate. But when someone used to call me, okay, I don't sell programs. I don't do that. When someone calls me, they're already trying to get in. And if I can get to them, I do. But years ago, when someone would call me, I would talk to them as long as they wanted to. I'd have a
Right.
really long conversation with them.
Mhm.
And then when I was done, I would say, now do me a favor. I say, I think it's really important that you call every trainer in the Nashville area, right? Interview everyone. And they would be so shocked that I was trying to send them to other trainers. And I say, I'm not trying to send you to other trainers. I said, but you have to be comfortable with who you're dealing with.
Right.
And so it's very important that you ask a lot of questions and you talk to a lot of trainers. Don't just believe me or choose me. I don't think I've ever had someone say, "Okay, I'll get back to you." It's almost always, "I've already talked to other trainers. I'm not going anywhere else." And I said, "Well, I think you should." And they get really pissed. They're like, "No, I want to train with you."
I want
But
to date you.
I was always serious about that. You know, put some effort into it. Don't
Yeah.
just take my word for it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? If you want
Right.
to train with me, you train with me, but I want you to know what's out there and maybe there is a better fit for you. And I'm okay with that if there is. But when they do call around, people are pretty good about reading through the car salesman bullshit too.
True.
You know what I mean?
True.
But I would tell them, I said, just ask for one thing. I said, and I'll do this for you if you want. Meet in a public place, grocery store parking lot or something, with their dogs off leash, no tools. And I used to offer that to people. And then I would tell them, tell me how many clients you want to talk to. I'll send you a list of 10 clients, 20 clients, 30 clients. You could talk to every single one of them. And that's what I used to offer. I don't have to do
Very
that
transparent.
anymore.
Right.
Very
Right.
transparent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I want you to know who I am. I've never had a complaint. I'm not saying that doesn't mean that I've never failed a dog or wasn't success. That's not what that means because I have, you know. You can't fix them all, but I've never had a complaint against me from anyone ever in my life.
That's
And
great.
that's something I'm very proud of.
That
That
you should
doesn't
be.
mean you're going to get along with everyone. You know, most of the people I work with now, I'm very picky about who I take on so I can handpick my clients and I build really great relationships with my clients. But I can count on one hand the amount of clients where I really had a little bit of a clashing with. And it was never that big of a deal.
Right.
You know, there was a couple there. I was like, okay, this person's crazy. I just have to, know, there's nothing I could do.
I'm in LA, so they're all over.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
As we talk to every special guest, you know, we see this theme that dog training is art, right? And dog training, you know, we have to study other artists to understand technique and timing and perspective and philosophies and all those other things. And so this actually started with Tyler Muto and Michael Ellis and every guest we've asked them, if we were artists and we had an artist toolkit, and what is the biggest tool in your artist toolbox that allows you to be as effective as you are? Like in essence, another word for it would be just, what is the advice? What is a single variable that you think is so important for young dog trainers, not young, newer dog trainers, to understand or to add to their toolbox or develop?
I think for me, number one is you have to have an insane passion and compassion for the animal and that obsession to learn. and I have an obsession to learn. Listen, for a lot of young dog trainers, they look at me and they probably think I have everything and they want to get to this place. And I am in a good place, don't get me wrong. But I just dropped $10,000 this week to take Ivan Balabanov's course. And people were blown away by that.
Ivan's
They're
dope.
like, I can't believe, like, and I never expected the kind of response that I'm getting from people, but I think it blew them away that I'm in a position that I'm in, and I'm in a very good position, that I'm still willing to spend that kind of money to learn from a master.
Yeah.
And that will never stop with me. You
Right.
have to be willing to learn from the best.
Yeah.
And so for these young dog trainers, they should be seeking out the best, not the mediocre, not the YouTube stars, not me. Seek out the best and do whatever you can. That's a lot of money to spend for anyone. And
True.
that was my wife who, you know, she said something to me. She said she heard a quote once, and this is what she said to me, and I was blown away. She said, maybe you should stop watering the weeds and water the flower. And she said, take the course. And that's a lot of money. Most wives wouldn't say that.
Right.
You know. So I bought her 2 bottles of wine and some roses.
Oh, love that.
Because listen, that's you know, when you have young kids and you're married, that's a lot of money for anyone.
Yeah,
But
right.
you're paying for 40 years of experience from one of the best to ever do it. And I'm a student, you know, it's what I am. I'm not a teacher. I do teach people that know less than me, but I am a student.
Right.
And I'm hoping that by time I die, I know at least 50% of what there is to know in dog training. I think I'm at about 5% right now. you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, now that you're retired, you could take as many courses.
Yeah, you got a little more time. Yeah.
That's it, you know, but I think they have to have that passion from learning and don't chase the money. The money will come when you get great.
Right.
You know, when you're providing people something they really need, the money will follow. Don't chase it. And to be honest with you, when you get there and the money is rolling, it's almost like the dopamine of a dog anticipating the reward. It's a lot more fun chasing the goal than actually reaching it. It really is.
It's true.
Enjoy the process. Enjoy the damn process.
It's
you know?
true. And that is, I think that's a universal theme that is about anything that you're passionate about. Right. And, and thank you so much for that advice. That's the truth. That is the truth for sure. If you love, what was it? Tyler said, he said, you know, dog training can be very, intellectually stimulating if you allow it to
let
be.
it.
And he goes, the day that dog training is not intellectually stimulating for me, then I'll change careers.
Right.
Which will never. It's like when the pigs fly, you know, it's like, it's something like that. That's amazing, man. I really appreciate you just being so generous with your time, Larry, and just being so down to have this conversation and just joining us on this podcast.
I'm honored to be asked, guys. I always take it as a great privilege to come on to someone's show and talk, and you guys kill it, man. This was great. I really enjoyed this.
So what you're saying is we have to have you back in like a couple
Absolutely.
Months. Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, now I'm craving Peruvian food and Mexican food.
Larry, do you ever come out to LA, Larry?
I'll be doing a seminar with Jay, Jack, and Joel, I think in December in the LA area.
Perfect. I will buy those tickets and just send me the info because I would love to go and visit you in person. All right, everybody. We want to thank Mr. Larry Krohn for joining us on our podcast. Those of you guys who want to follow him, if you don't follow him already, go ahead and check him out at Larry Krohn. It's Larry, Krohn on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all of those things. They can search you there and go ahead and check out his website. It's packmasters.com. And if you haven't picked up this book yet, make sure that you guys check out his very, very successful e-collar training book. It's called Everything You Need to Know About E-Collars, written by Mr. Larry Krohn. Larry Krohn, this is just such a pleasure having so much fun with you on this podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your stories, your freaking sense of humor, your love for Peruvian food. We really appreciate you, man. And we hope to have you back on sometime soon. That being said, if you guys really enjoyed this episode, make sure you guys share it with your friends, your family. If you guys are dog trainers, share it with some of your other dog trainer friends. And please make sure you guys leave a comment on whatever platform you guys are listening to this on or watching it on, because it is on video on Facebook and YouTube as well.
Had a blast, guys. Thanks so much. Had a really great time.
We
You're
love
the best,
you.
man.
We
It
love you,
was
Larry.
so fun for us
You're freaking. Oh, one last thing. This is the very, very last thing. We get texts or DMs all the time from clients asking us for dog trainers in different parts of the United States. If you guys are listening to this podcast, I want you guys to just DM us where you are, where you're located. And I want you guys to DM us your website so that way we can check you guys out, because so many of our clients from LA move to different states. We have so many clients people that listen that are dog owners that have no clue who's in their area. And we would love to create a map and a network of dog trainers that we can research, check you guys out, and refer you guys. Because just like as Larry Krohn was saying earlier, everyone wants to work with specific people that they see their content, but sometimes there are very talented trainers out in that area. And so for those of you guys who are listening to this podcast, we appreciate you guys listening to our podcast so much. We would love to refer you business. So please send us your website, any content that you guys have, and where you guys are located. We appreciate it. Again, my name is Brent Labrada. That guy is Mariano Alvarez, and our special guest, Mr. Larry Krohn. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Larry.
We'll see you guys again next time. Peace.
Take care, guys. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers, for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
We really hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we hope to see you back for the next one. But in the meantime, please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Dog Trainers Podcast. Go ahead and leave a comment. Ask us any questions that you want. We would love to connect with our dog trainer communities all around the world. Take care, guys. We'll see you next time.